The Georgia Bulldogs needed this, ladies and gentlemen. They absolutely needed this. I feel like this was a collective sigh of relief from Bulldog Nation. But not, that doesn't necessarily do it justice. That's more of a negative connotation. But that's kind of where a lot of Bulldog Nation was. That we've seen this team week in and week out just not look like we're used to seeing the Georgia Bulldogs look. And I think Kirby Smart talked about it in his post game press conference, or in this post game sideline interview. It's really difficult to go on the road in this conference. And it's difficult to go on the road in college football. It is just these college football stadiums, they are loud, rowdy environments. And Sanford Stadium was one of those on Saturday night. And we're coming to you a little bit late here because I was actually at this game and had to make my way through the traffic on the way home. But man, this environment, it was probably maybe the rowdiest environment of any Georgia football game I've been to in my lifetime. It's been a while since I went to one of these night games, since they got the LED lights and everything, and this whole stadium was just going absolutely nuts. It was good. Georgia fans have complained at times about the lack of night games, and you can see why. There's a different energy in the stadium at night. I love the 3:30 game that starts in the day, late afternoon, ends at night. You kind of get best of both worlds. But that night game, you just had all day to just kind of, prepare your mind for that game. And man, it was a good one. And Tennessee has now lost 8 straight against the Georgia Bulldogs. Kirby Smart now 8-1 against the Tennessee Volunteers, with that one loss being that Hail Mary back in 2016. That's what it took for the one time for Kirby Smart to lose to a Tennessee Volunteers team. It took a miracle. It took a Hail Mary. And so, yeah, it is sweet for Georgia to be coming off 8 straight wins over the Tennessee Volunteers. And I think there was a lot of I think the sentiment among Tennessee fans was, if not now, when? I do a podcast twice a week with a big Tennessee fan, Chase Thomas. Do the Chase Thomas podcast. You guys should check that out every Monday morning, every Thursday morning. We post those shows, but those are Chase Thomas. He's a big time supporter of Tennessee Volunteers, so I'm not here to rub his nose in it. He's usually a big texter, but I think this year he's a big first quarter guy, and I think with some of Tennessee's first half performances, he hasn't been as quick to the trigger texting me these days. But I'll give him 24 hours. Maybe we'll speak about it on our show Sunday night that we record that. So yeah, but I think that was the ultimate sentiment among Tennessee fans was, this is not the Georgia team we've seen in 2021, 2022, or 2023. Like if Tennessee, I almost said we with Tennessee. I'm channeling my Tennessee fan if as best I can. If they were ever going to beat Georgia, this was the time, right? This was. I actually attended a panel on Friday night. Had a couple of guys, Graham Coffey, Chase Thomas, Marlo Herrera, and Keith Marshall. I know the SEC Unfiltered guy. One more guy I know, UGA writer. I can't remember your name, but it was a good thing at Creature Comforts. The official brewery of Georgia football. But yeah, it was an awesome event. Friday night got you really pumped for the game on Saturday. But that, I think, Chase Thomas's point when talking about Georgia, and we got Jackson Johnson. I see you in the chat. What's up, Bulldog Nation? We're feeling good about a win right now here in Bulldog Nation. But one of the points I remember Chase Thomas making was that this Tennessee team was built more like Georgia than Georgia is, right? And that's this Tennessee team has been really good all year. The offense has just, they've been great at running the ball, but Nico and this offense has still kind of struggled to get going at times. But the defense has been elite all year, game in and game out. The one thing I questioned about Tennessee coming into this game Well, for one, Arkansas in Fayetteville, October 5th. That was the last time that this Tennessee team went on the road. And that was one of my biggest keys to this game. That the home environment was going to matter. We've seen Georgia play in so many hostile environments this year. It was time for that hostile environment to work in their favor, right? And Tennessee, under Josh Heupel, historically, they haven't really been a good team on the road. And you saw, like, Arkansas, there's a lot of teams that have gone into Fayetteville this year and gotten wins. And a lot of them weren't that easy. Texas did. They gave Texas a game today. That was 4 quarters. But, Ole Miss, LSU, they went in there and made easy work of the Razorbacks. So that was the last time we saw Tennessee go on the road. Oklahoma was the other one. And that was a really bad Oklahoma team. That was a pretty close game. So you saw the second road game of the year for Tennessee, or third road game of the year for Tennessee, second loss, and I think that speaks volumes. And so, I don't know if Kirby Smart's trying to gaslight us. I don't know if I saw this quote posted from Dog Nation, where he said the only thing that could have made tonight's blackout better is if they wore black jerseys. Kirby, that's what I'm talking about. Are you trying to gaslight me right now, Kirby? We all wanted to see the black jerseys. We saw the traditional red, but still the blackout, the atmosphere in the stadium was still great. And I think that's one of the biggest difference I thought in this game. This home crowd, it prevented Tennessee from doing whatever they wanted to do really offensively. And I thought that was they really brought it. And Tennessee, it was a really interesting game. So I think one of my keys to this game, personally, or just one of my biggest takeaways, I should say, was the defense brought it. The defense, we really saw this defense creating pressure on Nico, and Tennessee had a lot of success on third down in this game. Like, they had a lot of success in general. 10 of 18 on third down, 1 of 2 on fourth down. I mean, they ran for 152 yards. Like, if you told me coming into this game, Nico is 20 of 33, Dylan Sampson is 19 for 101 and a touchdown on the ground, I'm not sure how good I'm feeling as a Georgia fan. Like, Tennessee had success. That's one thing that's kind of interesting about this game is it's almost like Tennessee played well and Georgia was just better, so it's not kind of like in the Texas performance, which to this point, I mean, these are by far the 2 best performances of the season, I would say, the Texas and the Tennessee games. In the Texas game, the offense really did nothing. I mean, they had, what were they up 21-0, 23, was it 23-0 with about 100 total yards of offense. Like, the offense wasn't doing anything, but the defense was creating turnovers, giving them short fields. Like, that was not the case tonight. Tonight, Tennessee played well, and they still only managed 17 points. It was this Georgia defense, and for once, it was the second half that Tennessee was shut out. We've seen earlier this season, it's like this team, they can't score for 4 quarters. They're either getting shut out in the first half, or now they're getting shut out in the second half. And so, I can't give the defense enough credit for this game. Interesting stat I have for you here. On top of the defense, with the 5 sacks, 0 second half points, Josh Heupel coached teams, which is starting in 2021. This is now 4 games against Georgia, averaging 14.3 points per game against the Dogs. They are averaging 40.5 points per game against everybody else in the Josh Heupel tenure. So 40.5 points per game against all other opponents, and just over 2 touchdowns in these matchups against Kirby Smart and the Bulldogs. And I think that speaks volumes. I mean, this is definitely not one of Tennessee's. This is probably Heupel's worst offense, if we're thinking about it, over the last 4 years. And so that was one of my keys here. It was, I mean, Georgia has not looked good through the first 12 weeks, but Tennessee hasn't really either. It was just it's the different expectations. Georgia, that people view Georgia through a different lens because of those expectations. And so, we're seeing the preseason number 1 team look disappointing. Like, they've been disappointing for the preseason number 1 team, but let's keep in mind, they're still a top 10 team, maybe even a top 5 team. even if they haven't always looked like it this year. So, this was just a massive win in terms of just, you know, getting right. You're just getting the ship righted and just vibes for this program. I mean, if you got a third loss and the season's over by November, like I don't think any huge changes were going to come because Kirby Smart's got the most secure job of any head coach in all of college football. But it was still going to be some negativity. It was going to create some pressure on 2025. But we don't have to worry about that now. 2024 is not over. 2024, it still has everything, in your sights that you wanted to accomplish. Maybe not an SEC championship. We'll get into that. The chaos scenarios that are still on the table. But I mean, this is just a massive win. And I don't know about you, but I there was one game that kind of stuck out to me, and I was kind of thinking about this on my drive home. Let me take you back to 2013, Georgia LSU. I think most Georgia fans remember that game. It was an absolutely rowdy environment that day. I want to say that was also a day that College Game Day was in town. And to set the stage with Georgia in the 2013 season, 2013 that team. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you remember here, but just for everyone, the 2013 season started. You lost a lot on the defense, but you brought everything back on offense. That was Aaron Murray's senior year, Gurley and Marshall's sophomore year. Like you had a lot of offensive firepower on that team, and you came into the season with three of your first four games against top 10 opponents. You had Clemson in Death Valley in the opener, South Carolina week 2, and then LSU week 4. And LSU, just one of the best games I've seen, honestly, as a Georgia fan, between the hedges. Like this game, there's, for whatever reason, it feels like a lot of our favorite moments as Georgia fans seem to come on the road or in those white unis in neutral sites. But this was one of those huge atmospheres you got in Athens. And this game lived up to the billing. Georgia won 44-41 with the last minute touchdown to Justin Scott Wesley. And I want to say Leonard Floyd, I think, had the sack of Mettenberger near the end to seal it. But it was just a rowdy environment. And when Mark Richt is getting interviewed at the end of that game, like he starts getting emotional and like starts tearing up and how much he loves Aaron Murray and everything. And it felt like in that moment, I always felt like Aaron Murray and Mark Richt almost like embodied one another. Like just a lot of Georgia fans have, revisionist history on Aaron Murray's career. Like this man was one of the best quarterbacks Georgia's ever had. And for 3 years, he just got blamed for all the losses. And it was just never unfair. It was just always unfair. I felt like both guys, Mark Richt and Aaron Murray, were just kind of two of the best out there, but were never the best of the best. And it's like they just got criticized constantly just for not being the elite of the elite and kind of ignored for how good they really were. And it kind of felt like in that moment, like Mark Richt was just like, it was just a sigh of relief. It was like me and Richt and Murray at the same time, like the monkey off of our back. This is a huge win versus a big time top 10 opponent, loaded roster in LSU, and Georgia got it done. And I felt like that same feeling about Richt and Bobo, or about Richt and Aaron Murray. I felt this about Carson Beck and Mike Bobo in this game tonight. I think Mike Bobo was in his bag. Like I know everyone wants to just hate on Mike Bobo all the time. Every time Georgia doesn't get a first down, they want Mike Bobo fired. Also, worth noting that 2013 game when they beat LSU 44-41, that was also a Mike Bobo coached offense. But Mike Bobo comes out first play of the game. We take a shot. Carson Beck to Arian Smith, just 40-yard, 50-yard completion right out of the gate, and it's dropped. And that's just, that's basically the same thing that happened in Tuscaloosa against Alabama. Like Georgia was aggressive early, and Carson Beck was hitting his spots, and the receivers were dropping passes. And there was the screen pass, I know, early in this game too, that Dylan Bell dropped. And I don't want to focus on the negatives, but that's just a couple of negatives to start. And there was with the slow start, there starts to be the moaning and groaning about the play calling and Carson Beck. And I felt like in this game, Mike Bobo dialed up some just brilliant calls. And it was just nice to see Carson Beck making good decisions, making some plays with his legs. I was really impressed by Carson Beck in this game. And I don't think enough can be said about how good of a game Mike Bobo called, to be honest. Like a couple of those drops, I mean, to think about how the game could be different if Georgia picks as a 40-yard completion, first play of the game. Maybe they just go out and put a 7 on the board right from the jump. Don't have to mess around on those first few drives, starting deep in your own field position. But I just thought I can't say enough about Mike Bobo, mainly because he just gets criticized so much every time things aren't going right. Mike Bobo's constantly the scapegoat. So I just, for that reason, I was really impressed with Georgia's offensive game plan in this one. Carson Beck, 25 of 40 for 347 yards, 2 touchdowns through the air, another 32 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Like, this was a big time performance for Carson Beck, and he just needed it so bad. Like, I think all of Bulldog Nation needed this one so bad. And it was just, I think the most impressive part about this win is just it was just such a gritty offensive performance. I mean, you're starting 2 true freshmen, or not starting, but you basically only gave carries to 2 true freshmen and Nate Frazier and Chauncey Bowens. And Bowens got a couple here and there, but it was mainly Nate Frazier, 19 for 68 and a touchdown. Like, this dude had to get the hard yards. Like Trevor Etienne, I saw a report, I want to say it was Jake Rowe from Dogs HQ, that said Etienne might be out for the rest of the regular season now. So, I think to see Frazier have a game where he can get some of those tough yards, and just break a couple first downs. Like, we've hardly seen that from this running game this year. Just a couple double-digit runs. So I just thought that you have to be impressed with how you were able to run the ball on a Tennessee run defense that's been so good this year. And then just the contributions you got from the different playmakers. I mean, you got London Humphreys 3 for 63, Dominic Lovett 3 for 59, Oscar Delp 4 for 56 and 2 touchdowns. Ben Jurasek 5 for 51 in this game. Like Arian Smith 3 for 50, Nitro Tuggle with 2 for 25. Like, I haven't seen Nitro Tuggle really get in a game all year for the most part. Lawson Lucky also had a catch of 23 yards. So just so many different guys contributing, and that's what you're used to seeing with Georgia football. We're used to seeing guys like 5, 6, 7 different guys that are all just really solid contributors out wide. This year we haven't seen much of that. We've seen a lot of like the same four guys or so playing almost all of the snaps at wide receiver, and you haven't seen the tight ends make much of an impact so far. And I cautioned everybody before the season, that wanted to call Georgia tight end and all that. Like, oh, Carson Beck or Brock Bowers is gone, and now it's Oscar Delp's turn to step in. Like, we're not going to have another Brock Bowers. So let me just stop you right there. But we can still have a good tight end production. We haven't really seen much out of the tight end, and there's a variety of reasons for that. Part of it's Carson Beck's struggles at times. So a lot of the receiving production hasn't been great, and a lot of that's been on Carson Beck. But I think I can't say enough about how good Carson Beck was in this game. Even when he had some drops, it was still this offense still kept it moving. So I mean, you look at just like the drives in this game, and you start off the game with the punt and the how was it? Three punts to start off, and Tennessee gets in the 10-0, gets off the 10-0 start. But then from then on out, Georgia scored on all but one of the remaining drives the rest of the game. They went touchdown, field goal before the half, and then touchdown, punt, touchdown in the second half. Only got 3 second half possessions in this game, which is crazy to think. Tennessee only got 4, and Tennessee punted on all 4 of those. So the biggest thing, because kind of like I was alluding to with the Texas game, all of those Texas drives, except for the one after they threw everything on the field and all that, and the momentum started to turn. Georgia put that one like 80 something yard drive together to take the lead, kind of get back up 2 scores at Texas. That was the one drive they put together. In this game, 3 touchdown drives of 80 plus yards. Like, Georgia was having to drive the field. All 4 touchdown drives were over 75 yards. I mean, they had the 12 play 87-yard drive to start the second half, and then you have the 12 play 82-yard drive just to put it away at the end. I mean, I think Georgia got the ball back, 8.5 minutes left, up a touchdown, and they just absolutely take the wind out of the football, and they just drive down the field, take about 6 minutes of the clock off, and just put this game away. Like, it was nice to see. Like, this Georgia football team, I think that they've been just one of the more, polarizing teams in the country to talk about this year because they are that preseason number 1 team, and they've looked very beatable at times. I mean, you had the 13-12 win over Kentucky weeks ago. Like, that's one of the wins on the schedule. Like, not all the wins have even felt good this year. And obviously we know a couple losses to Alabama and Ole Miss, but this was just such a massive win. I think I've said that enough, so I might sound redundant here, but it's post-game reaction. Like, that's what we want, right? It's just we're fresh in our minds here. So I think that was what I was most impressed with, was just how they had to, this team is not healthy, and they had to find a way. They had to find some playmakers. They caught there's some tough catches made. I've been giving the receivers a hard time for the drops, and we know about the stats coming into the game, where they rank nationally in drops and all that. But they made some tough catches in the second half. London Humphreys, that third down catch he had on that final drive, like, that was massive. That really helped put this game away. Really kept that drive going. So, I mean, you can't say enough really about the contributions you got from different guys. And Humphreys has been a guy, that's had his problems with the drop. So this could be a huge game to build his confidence. One thing I didn't mention about the defense and getting after Nico the way they did is Smile Munden being back in this lineup. Like, Smile Munden, there's a reason this guy was a senior. What is it, second, or maybe is his third year starting? This guy, he's been a proven guy. Yeah, third-year starter, preseason all-conference guy. Like, we know that this Georgia, the way Georgia recruits the linebacker position is just unlike anyone else recruits any position for that. Like, as far as I'm concerned, maybe Ohio State receiver recruiting is on par with Georgia linebacker recruiting, but it's just insane how they seem to sign like 2 top 5 linebackers, at least 1 5-star every single year. So no one's losing any sleep for Georgia. No one cares, essentially, that Georgia is down in that linebacker room. They know how they recruit. But Smile Munden was a big guy, that impact player that they've been missing. I think people often call him Georgia's best blitzing linebacker. And you saw him get after Nico, force him, out of the pocket multiple times in this game. And, Nico made some plays. He made some plays with his legs. And I think that's one of the things I'm most encouraged about, because I came out of this game not thinking that Tennessee, that it's not like Texas, that Georgia just made Texas play their worst game of the season. Like, Tennessee made some plays. Nico, at 12 for 24, that's with on the ground, I should say, 12 carries for 24 yards. That's with the 5 sacks, so he made several plays with his legs to pick up some first downs, and it was, old Jackson Dart-esque. You saw how he killed Georgia with his legs a week ago. Nico was making some of those plays, but Georgia was also able to get home, and, they were able to just do a lot to keep this Tennessee offense, some of those drives out of the end zone. So they definitely, I want to say there was no 3 and outs in this game. Tennessee, one thing, I guess I'm patting myself on the back here because I was part of that Sanford Stadium crowd, but that was one thing I was impressed with. Like, there was a lot of times where That place is ready for the roof to, obviously there's no roof, but you know what I mean? They're ready for that roof to explode and just on that third down, and then Tennessee would just pick it up, and a collective sigh from the crowd, but then that crowd would get right back up and get into it the next third down, and Tennessee did a good job, I felt like, of managing this crowd for how many third downs they picked up, and they sustained some drives. Like I don't think there was one 3-and-out the whole game. Like all of the second half drives, you had 7 plays punt, 7 plays punt, 12 plays punt, and then the 5 plays with the fourth down stop where they first forced the turnover at the end. And nothing gets the Sanford Stadium crowd going like the Savage Pads. Chris Cole, the true freshman linebacker, like I was talking about, a guy who's really become a difference maker. Recovered the fumble. Damon Wilson, I want to say, is the one who forced that fumble. Is that right? Yeah, Chris Cole forced that fumble. But yeah, Georgia getting 5 sacks, getting all after Nico. Like that's just good to see. Like you took Tennessee's best shot, You had some adversity early in the game and the team responded. Like 17-17 at half. I felt like with how the first half went, being tied 17-17, like that was a good feeling going into the half. So, and then Georgia, took control of it. 14 zip in the second half. This was just a really gutsy performance, I thought, from the Dogs. So it's nice to see. We've seen a lot of games this year with underwhelming performances. I've said it before already, but it makes a big difference to have that home crowd on your side and just going nuts and you know forcing some procedure penalties at times. There's a couple third and shorts, fourth and shorts that Tennessee looked like they were going to go for that false starts backed them up. So this crowd, this defense really made a huge impact in this game. And it's interesting to see where we go from here. So just looking at like the scenarios and everything, how the SEC. So let me move on. That's basically that's the last thing I have to say about this Georgia win. I'll wrap it up by just saying the Bulldogs needed this really bad. I think I think maybe the rest of the country was ready to see a Georgia Bulldog season end before the end of November. But the Dogs were not about that today. Mike Bobo, he deserves his flowers for this game. Carson Beck deserves his flowers for this game. And this Georgia Bulldogs defense, that's the defense, I think, is what I was most impressed with. I keep going back and forth. I probably said most impressed with like 5 different things to this point, but you know what I mean. The defense I was kind of going to bat for the defense coming into this game. All the stats suggested that Tennessee has like the best defense in all of college football. But you look at what they've done in conference play, and they weren't really that different from this Georgia defense. I think Georgia actually had a better run defense coming into this game, which that might not be the case anymore after giving up 167 on the ground to Tennessee. But Tennessee made some plays, but Georgia just made more. And that's what happens when you have an experienced quarterback and an offense that's, doing their part. And that's ultimately what the difference was, that this defense has given up 17 in a lot of games, and some of them have still been close because this offense has not made enough plays. So, the 13-12 to Kentucky comes to mind, or 28-10 against Ole Miss. And honestly, I go back. I said at the time when Georgia was down 28-0 to Alabama, that 28-0 to Alabama in early second quarter was not all on the defense. Like that was a lot on the offense, putting them in bad position, not sustaining drives, and the defense just having to be on the field for like the first 20 minutes of the game, it felt like. So this Georgia defense, I think it's not 2021, it's not 2022, but this defense is coming into their own, and I think, they're getting healthier, and I was really impressed with the defensive performance today. Didn't give up any big shots through the air. Tennessee's longest pass play of the game was what here, 17. Like a couple a couple double digit plays on the night, but for the most part, they did a good job of keeping Nico and this offense, at bay. So